Maya Chen's hands were still stained with soil when she stepped into the shower at 4:30 in the morning. The water ran brown at first, swirling down the drain like all the things she'd learned to let go of over the past 5 years. She scrubbed her nails with the small brush she kept on the tile ledge, watching the earth dissolve, knowing it would be back under her fingernails by noon tomorrow. Some things were inevitable. Some things she didn't want to wash away. The cottage was silent except for the hum of the water recycler, a luxury she'd installed not for status but because it made sense, because every drop mattered when you spent your days teaching people how to grow food in places where nothing should grow. Through the frosted glass, she could see the outline of her bedroom, simple furniture she'd restored herself, plants hanging in macrame holders near the window, morning light just beginning to edge through the blinds. Everything she owned fit in this small space. Everything she needed, anyway. She dressed in the dark, cargo pants worn soft at the knees, a faded flannel shirt she'd had for 6 years, steel-toed boots that had earned every scuff. Her reflection in the bathroom mirror showed a woman of 42 who looked both younger and older than her years. Younger in the way her skin glowed from physical work and unprocessed food. Older in the fine lines around her eyes that came from squinting in the sun and smiling at people who needed hope more than they needed pity. The Subaru started on the third try. She patted the dashboard like she always did, a small ritual of gratitude. The bumper stickers had faded over the years, grow food not lawns, soil not oil, food justice now, but she could still read them if the light hit right. The city was just waking as she drove through streets that transitioned from manicured corporate districts to neighborhoods where the buildings leaned together like tired friends. The Westside Community Garden occupied a full city block that had once been a contaminated industrial site. Maya had spent 2 years getting the soil tested, remediated, and certified safe before the first seed went in the ground. Now it exploded with life, raised beds built from reclaimed wood. Trellises heavy with climbing beans, fruit trees that were still young but promising. The morning air smelled like wet earth and growing things. She found Miguel already there, setting up the drip irrigation system she'd taught him to maintain. He was 19, covered in tattoos that told stories he rarely shared, recently released from juvenile detention for something he'd done when he was too young to know better. His face lit up when he saw her truck, Ms. Maya. He straightened, wiping his hands on his jeans. The tomatoes in section 4, you need to see them. She followed him to the raised beds where Cherokee purple tomatoes hung like dark jewels. He'd grown these from seed. Following her instructions with the kind of precision that suggested he'd found something worth caring about. His hands, scarred and rough, touched the leaves with surprising gentleness. Miguel, these are perfect. She turned one fruit carefully, checking for splits or disease. How did you get them so uniform? I did what you said about the pruning and the spacing. He hesitated, and she recognized the expression, something good he was afraid to hope for. My parole officer came by yesterday. She saw me working here. Said I could apply to the agriculture program at the community college. Maya's throat tightened. She kept her face calm, professional, because she'd learned that too much enthusiasm could feel like pressure to kids who'd spent their lives disappointing people. You absolutely should apply. I'll write you a recommendation letter. For real, for real. He hugged her impulsively, then stepped back, embarrassed. Maya smiled and squeezed his shoulder once before turning to check the rest of the garden. By 6 o'clock, more volunteers had arrived, a Salvadoran family who grew herbs to sell at the weekend market, 2 formerly incarcerated men in their 50s who'd found peace in the rhythm of planting and harvest, a group of high school students fulfilling community service requirements who'd started showing up even when they'd completed their hours. This was wealth, though Derek's family would never understand it. This was the empire she'd built from $40,000 and a refusal to believe that success looked like everyone said it should. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out with dirt-caked fingers, saw Lily's name, and felt the familiar tightening in her chest that came with any reminder of the world beyond this garden. Hey, baby, Mom. Lily's voice carried that particular tone that meant she was about to ask for something she knew might hurt. So. Dad wants to do a graduation dinner. For my master's degree. Maya knelt beside a bed of lettuce, pulling a few weeds while she talked. That's nice. You should celebrate, at the pinnacle. With the whole family. A pause. Including you, the pinnacle. Of course. The restaurant that cost more for one meal than most of her volunteers made in a week. The place where Derek and Vanessa probably had a regular table, where they could be photographed by the right people, where every bite was content for someone's social feed. Mom, I know what you're thinking. I'm thinking I'm happy to celebrate with you. Maya kept her voice light. When is it? Tomorrow night. 7 o'clock. And Mom? Grandma Judith will be there. And Uncle Todd and Aunt Kimberly. And Vanessa, obviously. Lily's voice dropped. They're going to be awful to you, probably. You don't have to come. I would understand, I'll be there. Maya stood, brushing dirt from her knees. You're my daughter. Of course I'll be there. After Lily hung up, Maya stood for a long moment. Watching Miguel teach one of the teenagers how to identify aphids on the underside of leaves. She could skip it. She could make an excuse. But 5 years ago, Derek had walked out of Lily's high school graduation while their daughter crossed the stage, and Maya had been the only parent in that auditorium clapping. She wouldn't do that to Lily. She wouldn't make their daughter choose, even if it meant sitting across from Judith's judgment and Vanessa's pity and Derek's careful neutrality while they all pretended that Maya's life was something to feel sorry about. At 9, she left the garden and drove downtown, the Subaru looking conspicuously shabby among the sleek electric vehicles and self-driving cars that crowded the streets. The Agritech Solutions building rose 40 stories, all glass and steel, and the kind of architecture meant to announce ambition. The security guard at the desk looked up as she entered, her work clothes and dirty boots completely out of place in the marble lobby. Good morning, Ms. Chen. He smiled warmly. They're waiting for you in conference room A. She took the elevator to the 40th floor, where James Rivera was already reviewing projections on the wall-sized display screen. He looked up as she entered, his weathered face creasing into a smile that made her remember why she'd trusted him enough to partner with him 6 years ago. He'd been an aerospace engineer who'd burned out on building weapons systems and wanted to build something that fed people instead. The city council approved the Riverside project. He pulled up a 3D rendering that showed 12 interconnected garden spaces, each one integrated with the modular hydroponic systems they'd spent years perfecting. Full funding. 12 permanent urban gardens. We're changing food access for 50,000 residents, Maya. She studied the projection, her mind already working through implementation timelines, community engagement strategies, partnership structures. This version of herself, the strategist, the businesswoman, the visionary, felt as natural as the version who'd spent the morning with her hands in dirt. They weren't different people. They were the same person who'd learned that real change required both roots and reach. And the school partnership? She asked, fully funded. Lily's position as project manager starts next month. Salary, benefits, everything we discussed. Maya nodded, feeling the satisfaction of a plan coming together. Her daughter would have meaningful work, would learn the business side of impact, would build something that mattered. That was worth more than any trust fund Derek might have set up. They spent 2 hours reviewing budgets, expansion timelines, staffing needs. James kept trying to convince her to hire someone else to do the fieldwork, and she kept deflecting. The fieldwork was the point. The moment she stopped getting her hands dirty was the moment she'd lose touch with why any of this mattered. When she finally left, the sun was high and hot. She had just enough time to get home, shower again, and stare at her closet full of clothes that would never be appropriate for the pinnacle. Her phone buzzed as she unlocked her front door. Marcus's name on the screen made something warm unfold in her chest. Heard you're going to dinner at the Pinnacle tomorrow. That's my competition. Should I be worried? He'd added a winking emoji, which was as close to flirting as Marcus got in text messages. She smiled despite herself, typing back, their food can't compete with yours. Too much show, not enough soul. The response came quickly, sounds like we're talking about more than food. You nervous about tomorrow? She sat on her bed, looking at the text for a long moment. Marcus knew about Derek, everyone in the urban agriculture world knew the story, at least the broad strokes. Successful woman builds food justice empire. But Marcus had never pushed for details, never treated her like someone who needed rescuing. He'd just shown up at the gardens 2 years ago looking for produce suppliers and kept showing up, kept finding excuses to drop by, kept looking at her like she was someone worth knowing, terrified. But I'll survive. I always do. You don't just survive, Maya. You flourish. Remember that. She fell asleep thinking about his hands, scarred from years of kitchen work, careful when they touched herbs from her garden. Quick and confident when they moved through his kitchen. She thought about the way he smiled, rare and genuine, never performed for cameras or status. She thought about the possibility of someone seeing her, really seeing her, not as Derek's ex-wife or Lily's mother or the poor relation who chose dirt over diamonds, but as herself. The next evening, she stood in front of her closet wearing only a towel, her wet hair dripping down her back. She owned exactly one outfit that might pass for nice, jeans she'd found at Goodwill 3 years ago that actually fit well, a clean flannel shirt in dark green, small silver earrings that had been her grandmother's. She put them on, looked at herself in the mirror, and felt the familiar weight of inadequacy settle over her shoulders. Vanessa would be wearing something that cost more than Maya's monthly mortgage. Judith would be dripping in jewelry. Kimberly would be dressed for maximum social media impact. And Maya would be the poor relation, the one who'd failed to rise, the cautionary tale they could all point to as evidence that their choices were correct. Her phone buzzed. Another text from Marcus. Hey. Whatever happens tonight, remember that you're the most successful person in that room. Even if they can't see it, she typed back, how do you know? Because success isn't what you own. It's what you build. And Maya? You built something that actually matters. The pinnacle was exactly what she'd expected, all marble and gold accents and the kind of studied elegance that was meant to make certain people feel inferior. The hostess's eyes traveled over Maya's outfit with barely concealed disdain before leading her through the main dining room to a private space in the back. The temperature dropped when Maya entered. Derek stood near the window, uncomfortable in a suit that looked expensive but somehow wrong on him, as if he'd gained weight in all the places that made tailoring difficult. Vanessa beside him gleamed like something polished to within an inch of its life, designer dress, diamond necklace, the kind of beauty that took money and maintenance and no small amount of pain. Judith held court at the head of the table, wearing enough jewelry to fund one of Maya's garden projects for a year. Todd lounged in his seat with the easy confidence of someone who'd never questioned his place in the world, his surgeon's hands folded on the table, his expensive watch catching the light. Kimberly was already filming, her phone mounted on a small tripod, her perfect makeup and strategically tousled hair suggesting she'd spent more time preparing for this dinner than Maya had spent all week, and Lily, her beautiful daughter, wearing a simple dress and looking anxious in a way that made Maya's heart ache. This was supposed to be her celebration, and instead it would be a performance for people who measured worth in all the wrong ways. Well, Judith announced as Maya approached, her voice carrying across the room. Look who decided to grace us with her presence. Maya, darling, did you come straight from work? She pronounced work like it was something distasteful. I did, actually. We were planting a community orchard today. Maya took her seat next to Lily, who squeezed her hand under the table. Vanessa's smile was all teeth and no warmth. How rustic. Derek, darling, didn't you offer to buy Maya something appropriate to wear? Derek winced. Vanessa, no, it's fine, Maya said, her voice calm. She'd learned years ago that the worst thing she could do was show hurt. They fed on hurt. Kimberly was already maneuvering people into position for photos. Maya, maybe you could sit at the end? The lighting is better there. The translation was clear, you'll be less visible in the photos I post for my 500,000 followers. The server appeared with a tablet to take drink orders. Judith ordered wine that probably cost more than Miguel's monthly rent. Todd wanted whiskey, top shelf. Vanessa requested champagne. Derek asked for scotch, his voice tight with some emotion Maya couldn't quite read. Just water for me, Maya said. Judith laughed, the sound bright and cutting. So Maya. Always so modest. Tell us, are you still playing in dirt for that little community garden thing? I do urban agricultural development for underserved neighborhoods. Right. So volunteer work. How lovely that you have so much free time. Judith sipped her wine, looking at Maya over the rim of her glass like she was examining something mildly interesting under a microscope. Todd leaned back in his chair, his face arranged in an expression of theatrical interest. I just performed a triple bypass on the mayor. Saved his life, actually. Published the technique in the Journal of Cardiology. He turned to Maya. And you, Maya? Still growing tomatoes? The table laughed. Even Derek managed a weak smile, though he couldn't quite meet her eyes. Lily's face was getting red, her jaw tight in a way that reminded Maya of herself at that age. Kimberly was filming everything. Her voice bright and artificial. Guys, this is giving me such good content. Blended family dinner, my followers eat this up. Maya, say something inspiring about, like, being happy with less. Vanessa reached over and placed her hand on Derek's, the gesture possessive and deliberate. Her ring caught the light, massive, ostentatious, the kind of thing that announced its price tag before its beauty. You know, Derek and I just closed on a beach house. Malibu. We'll spend Christmas there. Derek's finally living the life he deserves. She looked at Maya, her eyes sharp. Some people are just meant for bigger things. Maya took a sip of water. The glass was heavy, expensive crystal that probably had a story about Italian artisans and centuries-old techniques. It made her think of the mismatched cups at the garden, donated by volunteers, each one chipped or cracked but still functional, still holding water, still enough. Maya's work is important, Derek said quietly, the words sounding rehearsed. She helps people. Judith waved her hand dismissively. Oh, darling, don't patronize her. I'm sure Maya is very happy with her choices. After all, not everyone has ambition. Some people are perfectly content being simple. Speaking of which, Todd added, warming to the performance now, Maya, are you still driving that ancient car? The Subaru? I saw it in the parking lot. I honestly thought it was abandoned. More laughter. Kimberly typed something on her phone. Probably crafting the perfect caption for her followers. Derek looked ill. Lily looked ready to commit violence. The food arrived in waves, tiny portions arranged like art, each plate explained by servers who described preparation techniques and ingredient sourcing with the kind of reverence usually reserved for religious texts. Maya ate mechanically, tasting nothing, watching her daughter's face get tighter and tighter as the dinner progressed. Derek told me you called him last month asking for financial advice? Judith's voice carried false concern. Maya, if you're struggling, we can help. Maybe get you into a better paying job? Todd's hospital is always hiring for positions that don't require much education. Custodial services, Todd offered helpfully. Honest work. Good benefits, the implication hung in the air like smoke. You're poor. We're rich. We could employ you if you'd just admit you need us. Maya's jaw tightened slightly, the only sign that anything had landed. She took another sip of water, saying nothing. Vanessa leaned forward, her face arranged in an expression of helpful concern that didn't reach her eyes. Or I could get you into real estate. I mean, you'd start with rentals, nothing luxury, but it's better than digging in dirt. Maya doesn't need our help, Derek said, but his voice was weak, the words meaningless. Judith clicked her tongue. Derek, stop protecting her pride. Look at her. She's clearly struggling. Those clothes probably came from a thrift store. They did, Maya confirmed calmly. Triumphant looks traveled around the table like a shared secret. See? See what happens when you don't play the game correctly. Kimberly was filming again, her influencer voice bright and patronizing. You know what? I actually respect that. Very reduce, reuse, recycle. It's giving eco-warrior on a budget vibes. My followers would actually love this angle. She pointed her phone at Maya without asking permission. So, Maya, what's it like choosing a simple life? Like, do you ever regret not wanting more? Lily's fork clattered against her plate. The sound was loud in the suddenly silent room. Stop. Her voice shook with rage. All of you, just stop, Lily, sit down, Derek began. No. Lily stood, her chair scraping backward. I'm so sick of this. You all sit here in your designer clothes, flashing your money around, and you mock the one person at this table who actually does something meaningful with her life. Sweetheart, we're not mocking. Judith's voice had lost some of its assurance. You absolutely are. You've been doing it since we sat down. And Mom just takes it because she's a better person than all of you combined. Vanessa's expression hardened. Lily, your mother made her choices. Her choices? Dad left her with almost nothing. You all celebrated that. And she rebuilt her entire life from scratch while you threw money at every problem and called it success. Todd straightened in his chair, his face reddening. We've worked hard for everything we have you? Lily's voice was cold now, precise. Or did you just inherit opportunities and call it talent? The table erupted. Derek was trying to calm everyone down. Vanessa was filming on her phone. Kimberly was filming for her social media. Judith was demanding apologies. Todd was lecturing about the value of hard work. Through it all, Maya sat quietly, looking at her daughter with pride and love and a fierce gratitude that Lily had become someone who couldn't stomach injustice, even when it was easier to stay silent. Then Lily turned to her, and Maya saw the determination in her daughter's eyes. Mom, are you going to tell them, or should I? Maya stood in the center of the quantum glass atrium, watching holographic butterflies drift through beams of artificial sunlight while her former mother-in-law's voice echoed off. Surfaces designed to amplify everything. The Elevation Club didn't just host events. It consumed them, processed them through its neural architecture, and projected a curated version back to its members' personal feeds in real time. Every word spoken here existed twice, once in reality, once in the digital record that would follow you forever. Still doing the vertical farming thing? Judith's avatar, younger, smoother, a version of herself that existed only in augmented space, floated beside her physical form. Both versions smiled with identical condescension. I mean, it's admirable, really. Very grassroots, Maya felt the familiar tightness in her chest, the old reflex to explain or justify or make herself smaller. Her neural implant buzzed with a notification. Someone in the room had tagged her profile with the keyword underachiever. The Elevation Club's social algorithm was already at work, categorizing her, filing her away in whatever digital hierarchy governed this place. It keeps me busy, Maya said, taking a sip from a glass that knew her hydration levels and was probably logging her cortisol spike. Everything here measured. Everything judged. Across the atrium, Derek stood with Vanessa, his second wife's bioluminescent evening gown shifting colors with her mood, currently a confident gold that announced her satisfaction with her place in the world. Derek's own augmented reality overlay was visible to anyone with standard ocular implants: net worth ticker, social influence score, a scrolling feed of his recent investments. He'd always liked transparency when the numbers looked good. Lily materialized beside Maya, her presence announced by a soft chime that indicated a first-degree connection entering proximity. Her daughter's retinal display was active. Maya could see the faint glow, which meant she was recording. Probably streaming to her followers, the ones who thought her family drama was compelling content. You okay, Mom? Lily's voice was low, but her profile was public. Whatever Maya said next would be transcribed, analyzed, potentially monetized. I'm fine. Maya adjusted her dress, a simple design that looked almost aggressively analog in this space. No reactive fabric, no embedded tech, no status indicators. Just cloth. The other guests' implants probably couldn't even process it properly. They're taking bets, Lily said. In the private channels. On how long you'll stay. Maya's implant buzzed again. Someone had just transferred microcurrency to someone else, a wager settling in real time. She'd declined most neural augmentation when it became fashionable, keeping only the basic communication and safety features. Now that choice marked her as surely as a brand. Analog Annie, they'd called her during the divorce proceedings. Derek's lawyers had used her technological conservatism as evidence of her inability to thrive in modern society. Let them bet, Maya said. The dinner chime sounded, a frequency designed to trigger serotonin release in guests with premium neural packages. Maya felt nothing, which meant she was one of maybe 3 people in the room experiencing the summons as simple sound rather than a wave of gentle compulsion. The dining space existed on multiple levels simultaneously. Physical tables arranged in concentric circles, but also virtual seating that allowed remote guests to appear as solid holograms, participating from anywhere in the world. Derek's mother had insisted on this venue for Lily's graduation celebration, and of course she'd ensured maximum attendance. Every family member, every business connection, every person who might witness and record and broadcast this gathering to their networks. Maya took her assigned seat and discovered she'd been placed at the outer ring, the physical outer ring, while Derek and Vanessa occupied the center platform, elevated 3 inches above everyone else. The seating algorithm had made its calculations. She was peripheral. Decorative. The ex-wife who'd been invited out of obligation, seated where her lack of status wouldn't contaminate the inner circle. Todd appeared in the seat beside her, his body present but his attention clearly divided across multiple virtual spaces. His eyes had the glazed quality of someone managing 6 conversations simultaneously through neural chat. Maya. Looking very authentic tonight, thank you, Todd. No, I mean it. Very retro. Very throwback. He gestured vaguely at her dress. You could start a trend. Ironic simplicity. Very meta. Kimberly arrived in a cloud of scent molecules, designer pheromones that her implant released to enhance her natural appeal. Her social influence score hovered above her head for anyone who cared to look. 2.7 million followers, engagement rate holding steady at 8%. She'd built an entire brand around aspirational minimalism, which apparently required extensive technology to maintain. Maya, darling. Kimberly's embrace was precise, calculated for the cameras she knew were recording. You have to tell me about your little gardens. My followers are obsessed with authentic food experiences. They're urban agriculture centers, Maya said. Not really little, right, but the aesthetic, you know? Very earthy. Very real. Kimberly's implant was already processing Maya's response, generating potential content angles. Calculating engagement metrics. We should collaborate. I could feature you in my series about people who found happiness without traditional success. The words landed like they always did, seemingly kind, actually brutal. Maya's implant buzzed with another notification. Someone had just updated her social profile with a new tag, Inspirational Poverty. The first course arrived on platforms that floated to each guest using magnetic levitation. The food was real. The Elevation Club prided itself on actual organic matter, grown in monitored conditions and genetically optimized for both nutrition and aesthetic appeal. Maya recognized the microgreens. She'd developed 3 of the varieties herself. Though no one here would know that. Her contribution to the food supply existed in databases and patent filings, not in public consciousness. Vanessa's voice cut through the ambient music, a frequency-targeted sound that used directional speakers to reach only certain tables. So Maya, are you still doing the community garden thing? I keep meaning to visit one. Get some content for my wellness channel. The question was designed to be heard by everyone, particularly those whose neural feeds were active. Maya felt the attention shift toward her, dozens of people's augmented overlays suddenly highlighting her profile, pulling her basic information, noting her lack of notable achievements. I'm still working in urban agriculture, yes, that's so important, Vanessa continued, her tone suggesting the opposite. Someone has to help the people who can't afford real food. The bioprinted nutrition has gotten so much better, but there's still that psychological need for actual plants, isn't there? Very primal. Derek's mother leaned forward from her center position. Maya has always been very committed to her causes. Even when they're not particularly profitable, laughter rippled through the connected guests, both physical and virtual. Maya's implant recorded the moment, flagging it as a potential memory she might want to review later, as if she'd ever want to relive this. Actually, Lily's voice carried across the space with surprising force. Mom's work has been pretty successful. The room didn't go silent. Silence was impossible here, with the constant hum of data transfer and neural processing. But attention shifted. Lily's social profile was strong, her influence score respectable. When she spoke, people listened, or at least their algorithms did. "What do you mean, honey?" Judith's smile held a warning. "This wasn't the script, I mean Dad's been calling Mom for months. Financial advice. Investment strategy. That kind of thing." The temperature in the room didn't change, environmental controls maintained perfect comfort, but something shifted. Vanessa's dress flickered, colors destabilizing briefly before settling on a confused orange. Derek's net worth ticker stuttered, and he reached up unconsciously as if to hide it. "Lily, that's not exactly," Derek started. "Derek." Judith's voice carried the weight of 20 years of social dominance, amplified by her premium audio package. "What is she talking about?" Maya set down her glass carefully, aware that every micro-expression was being recorded by a dozen different devices. She'd spent 5 years practicing this moment in various forms, the moment when truth would collide with perception. She'd imagined being angry, being triumphant, being petty. But sitting here now, watching Derek's face cycle through emotions while his augmented overlay struggled to project confidence his biology couldn't support, she felt only a strange calm. "5 years ago," Maya said, and her voice was steady, unaugmented, purely analog in this digital space, "when Derek left me during Lily's graduation ceremony, left physically, not just virtually, actually walked out while our daughter received her credentials, I had $40,000. That was my portion from the dissolution. His lawyers made certain the algorithm ruled in his favor." Judith opened her mouth, but Maya continued, "Everyone told me what to do with it. Invest in the automated indexes. Buy into the Mars colony futures. Purchase a neural upgrade package to improve my employment prospects." She paused, letting the moment stretch. "I did none of those things," Todd scoffed. "Let me guess. You put it all in heirloom seeds." "I invested in something I understood. Growth Grid Technologies. 3 engineers with brilliant ideas about modular hydroponic systems and absolutely no understanding of how food insecurity actually functioned on the ground." She pulled out her device, an embarrassingly old model by current standards, and projected images into the shared visual space. Sophisticated rooftop systems, vertical gardens producing thousands of pounds of food, community centers thriving in former food deserts. Every guest's implant automatically enhanced the images, pulling metadata, confirming authenticity. "My community gardens aren't a hobby," Maya said. "They're field research. I test every system personally, in real communities, before we scale. Every garden I build is a proof of concept. Every volunteer I train is data." Vanessa's dress had shifted to a skeptical purple. "That's admirable, really. But startups fail 90% of the time. Everyone knows that. The algorithms predict it." Maya smiled then, a genuine expression that probably confused the emotional recognition software trying to categorize her mood. "You're absolutely right. Which is why when Agri-Tech Solutions acquired us 8 months ago, I was incredibly grateful I'd kept all my equity shares." She let exactly 3 seconds of silence pass, counting them by heartbeat rather than neural timer. "The acquisition was valued at $840 million. The room's ambient system struggled briefly with the sudden spike in neural activity as dozens of people simultaneously tried to verify her claim. Implants buzzed, feeds updated, financial databases were queried. In the 2 seconds it took for confirmation to ripple through the network, Maya watched faces change. Judith's wine glass stopped midway to her mouth, her avatar frozen in an identical pose. Todd's multitasking collapsed as his attention snapped fully into the physical present. Kimberly's device actually slipped from her hand, clattering against the magnetic field before being caught by automated safety systems. Vanessa's dress cycled through colors rapidly, unable to settle on an emotional state. Derek closed his eyes, because he already knew, and now everyone else knew that he knew. "That's impossible," Todd said, but his implant was already showing him the documentation. The verified transaction records, the proof, my portion, after taxes and fees, came to $127 million. Maya's voice remained conversational, discussing her net worth the way she might discuss crop yields. Give or take a few $100,000, the silence this time was real, biological silence as people stopped breathing, stopped moving, stopped existing for a moment in their augmented spaces to focus entirely on the physical woman sitting at the outer ring who'd just revealed she had more wealth than everyone at the center combined. I kept my field work because I love it, Maya continued. The money means I can scale faster, fund more centers, hire better engineers. But the hands in the dirt part? That's not something I'd give up. It's the entire point. Kimberly had her device out now, fingers flying across the haptic interface, pulling up search results. Her face went through a visible transformation as data loaded. Oh my God. Oh my God. You're actually famous. In sustainability circles, you're actually famous. She projected the results into shared space, articles, interviews, awards. Images of Maya at press conferences standing beside mayors and foundation presidents, always in simple clothes, often with soil still visible under her fingernails. Maya Chen, founder of Growth Grid Technologies, pioneering urban food justice, Kimberly read aloud. Quiet millionaire transforming food deserts. Maya, I've been trying to interview people like you for months. My followers would kill for content with you. The absurdity of it hit Maya fully then. Kimberly, the influencer with millions of followers. Starstruck by someone she'd been patronizing minutes earlier. The algorithms had gotten it so wrong, filing Maya under failure when they should have been flagging her as hidden success. Vanessa turned to Derek with a look that bypassed her augmented composure entirely. You knew about this. I called him last month, Maya said before Derek could formulate a response. He'd been making some concerning investment choices. High-risk quantum speculation, over-leveraged cryptocurrency positions. I could see the pattern. My portfolio is fine, Derek said, but his voice lacked conviction and his net worth ticker had gone dim. Your portfolio was about to collapse, Maya said simply. You were over-leveraged in speculative assets that were going to tank. I could see it from the documents you showed me. You were going to lose everything. The table had become a tennis match, heads turning back and forth, though now the attention held a different quality. These people smelled blood, and it wasn't Maya's. I didn't take your advice, Derek said. I know. You lost $340,000 in the following 3 weeks when those stocks collapsed exactly as predicted. Then you called me back, panicking, asking if I could help restructure what remained. Vanessa's dress had settled on a deep red that Maya suspected wasn't intentional. You lost $300,000 and didn't tell me? It's being handled. I restructured what was left, Maya said. Diversified properly, shifted away from emotional speculation. Your portfolio should stabilize, Derek, but you need to stop treating investment like gambling. Judith tried to rally, her decades of social dominance kicking in. Well, that's very generous of you, Maya. But let's not pretend that money makes you somehow better than you. Lily cut in. Actually, yeah, it kind of does. Maya turned to her daughter, surprised. Lily's profile was public, her feed active, and she was making a choice to say this where everyone could see it, where it would be recorded and archived and potentially damage her own social standing. Grandmother, Lily continued, her voice carrying the kind of confidence Maya remembered from before the divorce, before everything had collapsed. You asked if Mom was still doing community gardens. She's currently funding 12 permanent urban agriculture centers across the city. Each one provides fresh food to 3,000 to 5,000 residents in former food deserts. They break ground on the first integrated school garden next month. Judith's mouth opened but nothing emerged. Lily turned to Todd. Uncle Todd, you asked about her work. In the past 5 years, the programs Mom developed have been replicated in 47 cities. 300 jobs created in underserved communities. Her research on nutrient density in urban-grown produce was published in the Journal of Sustainable Agriculture. She'd be happy to send you a copy, though I doubt you'd read it. Todd looked like he'd been slapped, his augmented overlays flickering as if his implants couldn't quite process this reversal. Kimberly, Lily continued, you wanted inspiring content about being happy with less. Here's the thing, Mom doesn't have less. She has exactly what she wants. Her work fulfills her. Her relationships are genuine. She sleeps well at night. Can you say the same? Kimberly's mouth opened and closed silently, her content-generating algorithms apparently unable to produce a response. And Vanessa? Lily's voice took on an edge. You said some people are meant for bigger things. Mom is feeding communities. Changing food systems. Creating sustainable models that will outlive all of us. What exactly have you built besides a social media presence and a wardrobe that broadcasts your feelings? Vanessa looked like she wanted to disappear, her dress cycling through colors so rapidly it nearly strobed. Maya reached out and touched Lily's hand gently. Lily, this is your night. No, Mom. This is your night too. Because I got my degree, yeah, but I also got a job offer. From you. Lily turned back to the table. Mom hired me as project manager for the Riverside development. Salary, benefits, equity package. She also paid off all my student loans. All $87,000. As a graduation gift, she looked pointedly at Derek, whose financial contribution to Lily's education had been the legal minimum, calculated by algorithms that determined obligation without considering relationship. That's excessive, Judith gasped. Is it? Lily asked. Dad spent more than that on his car. The one with the AI driver and the self-healing exterior and the social status package that broadcasts his supposed success to everyone within range. Maya stood then, preparing to leave. She had an early start tomorrow, volunteers expected at 6, community members counting on her, real work that mattered more than this performance. Her implant buzzed with dozens of notifications as people frantically updated her social profile, recalculating her influence score, adjusting their networks to account for this new information. I need to go, she said. I have a 6 a.m. planting tomorrow with a group of formerly incarcerated individuals who are rebuilding their lives through agricultural training. It's some of the most important work I do. She turned to Lily. I'm proud of you. Not just for your degree, but for the person you've become. Compassionate. Strong. Clear about what matters. Mom, wait. Lily smiled. Tell them about Marcus. Maya felt heat rise to her cheeks, an entirely biological response that no technology could fake or enhance. Your news to share, honey. Marcus Delgado has been asking Mom out for 2 years, Lily announced to the room. The Marcus Delgado. 3 Michelin stars, 6-month waiting list, Forbes profile last year. He sources ingredients from Mom's gardens personally. Twice a week. Has been for 2 years. The room processed this information with visible difficulty. Maya Chen, the analog failure, the woman who'd been pitted and dismissed, was being courted by one of the city's most celebrated restaurateurs. A knock on the dining room's entrance interrupted the moment. The space's security system projected an identity overlay, Marcus Delgado, verified, access granted. The doors opened, he walked in looking exactly like himself, expensive but understated, confidence that came from building something real rather than projecting a digital version of success. His implants were minimal, barely visible, just enough tech to function in modern society without becoming consumed by it. Ms. Chen, he said, smiling warmly. I hope I'm not interrupting. Your assistant mentioned you'd be here. Maya felt the room's attention shift, felt their algorithms recalculating, trying to understand why this man would interrupt this gathering for her. Marcus. What are you doing here? Your meeting with the city council got moved up. Tuesday at 3. He handed her a folder, actual paper, expensive and rare, their fingers brushing. The chemistry was immediate and visible even without augmented analysis. Also, I finally perfected that herb roasted chicken using the purple basil from your rooftop garden. If you're free after the council meeting, I'd love your opinion. The table watched this interaction with varying degrees of shock. This man, successful, attractive, clearly interested, was looking at poor, simple Maya like she was the most fascinating person in the room. I'd love that, Maya said, surprised by how genuine her smile felt. It's a date then. He nodded politely to the table, his own minimal augmented display showing just enough information to mark him as someone significant. Then he paused, looking at Derek with barely concealed amusement. Mr. Chen? Your ex-wife's Riverside project? It's putting 3 restaurants out of business. Every chef in the city wants to source from her gardens exclusively. We're all trying to be the next verified Maya Chen supplier. He winked at Maya and left, the doors closing behind him with a soft whoosh of filtered air. The silence after Marcus's exit felt different from the earlier silences. This one carried weight, consequence, the slow collapse of assumptions. Derek stared at the doors. His augmented overlay flickering as his implant pulled up Marcus's public profile, his net worth, his influence score, his verified achievements. Who was that? Vanessa asked, but she already knew, her own implant having provided the information. Marcus Delgado, Derek said hollowly. Sage and Stone. 3 Michelin stars. His reservation algorithm is booked 6 months out, and he's dating Maya? Todd's voice carried genuine confusion. Everyone turned to look at Maya with new eyes, their perceptions shifting, their algorithms racing to catch up with reality. She wasn't the pathetic ex-wife. She wasn't the poor relation. She was the most successful person at this table, and she was being courted by someone equally successful who shared her values. Kimberly held up her device, projecting more search results. There are dozens of articles. Hundreds of images. Maya at press conferences, ribbon cuttings, award ceremonies. Always in simple clothes, always with soil under her fingernails, but standing beside mayors and CEOs and foundation presidents, she looked up at Maya with dawning horror. Your eco-influencer royalty. My followers, people I follow, they talk about you. The authentic success story. The anti-brand brand. Maya picked up her bag, simple, analog, no smart features, and prepared to leave for real this time. I forgive you, Derek. All of you, actually. But forgiveness doesn't mean I'll keep subjecting myself to your judgment. Lily, I'll see you tomorrow for brunch. Just us, can Marcus come? Lily asked. I've been dying to meet him properly. Maya felt herself blushing again, that analog response that no technology could fake. We'll see. Oh, and Derek? Maya paused at the doorway, looking back at her ex-husband whose net worth ticker had gone completely dark. That financial restructuring I did for you? Consider it my final gift. Not because you deserved it, but because Lily deserves a father who isn't bankrupting himself trying to impress people who don't actually care about him. Derek's voice cracked. Maya, I'm sorry. For all of it. I'm so sorry, I know you are. She meant it. But sorry doesn't give Lily back the moment you walked out on. It doesn't give me back the years I spent thinking I wasn't enough. The best thing you can do now is learn from it. She walked out with her head high, leaving behind a room full of people whose algorithms and implants and augmented realities had failed to show them what was real. Maya's hands were stained green when the notification arrived. She'd been elbow-deep in soil for 3 hours, testing pH levels in the Roosevelt Street Community Garden, when her ancient wrist device buzzed, once, twice, then continuously as if panicking about its own obsolescence. The smart dirt sensor she'd been calibrating blinked red, registering her distraction. You going to check that? James asked from 2 rows over. His hands equally filthy, his tone suggesting he already knew what the notification was about. Maya wiped her palms on her work pants, actual cotton, not the self-cleaning netto fabric everyone else wore, and glanced at her screen. The message was from Lily, her daughter, and it contained only 3 words followed by 7 exclamation points. Graduation dinner Friday. Below that, a second message. Dad's family insists. Please come. Please please please. Below that, a third. Grandmother already asked if you're still doing the gardening thing. Maya felt the familiar tightness in her chest, the old reflex to make herself smaller, to apologize for existing in a space that wasn't designed for people like her anymore. People who worked with their actual hands. People whose net worth couldn't be displayed in an augmented reality overlay hovering above their heads like a halo of zeros. It's Lily's graduation dinner, Maya said, pocketing the device. Derek's family is hosting. James looked up from the tomato plant he'd been examining, his expression shifting from curious to concerned in the span of a heartbeat. At the Elevation Club, where else? You don't have to go. She's my daughter. She's also 22 and capable of celebrating without you subjecting yourself to those people. Maya returned to her sensor, adjusting the calibration with more force than necessary. The device beeped in protest. They're not those people. They're Lily's family. They stopped being your family 5 years ago when Derek walked out during her high school graduation. James's voice was gentle but firm, the tone he used when he was about to say something she needed to hear but didn't want to. Literally walked out. During the ceremony. While your daughter was receiving her diploma, I remember. Maya's voice was flat. She remembered everything about that day with the kind of clarity that trauma provides, the way Derek's phone had buzzed during the opening speech, the way he'd glanced at it, frowned, then stood and walked down the aisle without a word while families turned to watch. The way she'd sat there alone in a sea of coupled parents. Smiling so hard her face hurt, clapping so enthusiastically her palms stung, overcompensating for his absence in every visible way while dying inside, and you're going back to them willingly, for Lily. Not for them. James returned to his plant, but she could feel his disapproval radiating across the garden bed like heat shimmer on summer pavement. He'd been her business partner for 3 years now, her friend for longer, and he understood better than anyone what Derek's family represented, the world that had looked at Maya Chen and decided she simply didn't matter enough to acknowledge as human. Her device buzzed again. Another message from Lily, also Mom? Where's something nice? Like really nice? Grandmother said something about setting a certain tone and I just. Please, Maya's jaw tightened. She looked down at her work clothes, cargo pants with actual pockets, a long-sleeve shirt that had seen better days, boots that had walked through more community gardens than she could count. This was her uniform. This was who she was. But for Lily, she could pretend to be someone else for one evening. I need to go shopping, she said. No you don't. James stood, brushing dirt from his knees. You need to walk into that place exactly as you are and remind them that their opinion of you is irrelevant. Easy for you to say. Your ex-husband's family doesn't host dinners specifically designed to make you feel inadequate. My ex-husband's family sends me annual holiday cards with pictures of their new son-in-law photoshopped into old family photos where I used to be. James smiled without humor. Trust me, I understand the game. I just think you're better than playing it. Maya wanted to argue, but her device buzzed a third time. Not Lily this time, a reminder from her calendar app. City Council presentation, Riverside Development Proposal. Tuesday, 3 p.m. Final approval pending. She'd been working on the Riverside project for 18 months. 12 acres of former industrial wasteland transformed into vertical gardens. Hydroponic systems, and community agriculture spaces that would serve 5,000 residents in one of the city's most persistent food deserts. The proposal had been refined, researched, budgeted down to the last seedling. This Tuesday, the city council would vote on full funding. On paper, it was just another project. In reality, it represented everything Maya had been building toward for 5 years, proof that her approach worked, that authentic community development mattered more than flashy tech solutions, that people were more than their augmented profiles and influence scores, and if the council approved it, the project would be public. Very public. Which meant Derek and his family would finally know what she'd actually been doing while they assumed she was just playing in the dirt. The thought should have satisfied her. Instead, it made her stomach turn. She didn't want their validation. She'd stopped wanting it 3 years ago when she'd realized their approval was a trap, something they dangled just out of reach to keep her performing, proving, apologizing for taking up space in their world. You're thinking too hard, James said. I can see the gears turning. The council meeting is Tuesday. The dinner is Friday, so if the project gets approved, there will be press. Public announcements. Derek's family reads the business section religiously. They'll know before Friday. James's expression shifted, understanding dawning. You're planning something. I'm not planning anything. I'm just aware of the timeline. Maya Chen, are you about to walk into your ex-husband's family dinner with a secret that will fundamentally alter their perception of you? I'm going to celebrate my daughter's graduation. while sitting on information that proves you've been more successful than all of them combined. Success is relative. Success is $127 million, which is the amount you cleared after taxes when Agritech Solutions acquired your company 8 months ago. James crossed his arms, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Success is them thinking you're a failure while you're actually funding their entire lifestyle because Derek keeps calling you begging for investment advice. He doesn't beg, he called you 6 times last month, 5 times. And only because his portfolio was overleveraged in cryptocurrency speculation and about to collapse, which you warned him about, which I explained in clear terms that anyone with basic financial literacy would understand. And then he lost $340,000 in 3 weeks because he didn't listen to his poor ex-wife who doesn't understand money. James was fully grinning now. You're absolutely planning something. Maya returned her attention to the smart dirt sensor, but she was smiling too. I'm planning to show up, celebrate Lily, and leave. What they choose to understand about my life is irrelevant. You're planning to make them feel exactly as small as they've made you feel for 5 years. I'm planning to exist authentically and let them draw their own conclusions. Revenge without violence. I respect it. It's not revenge if I'm just telling the truth. It's absolutely revenge if the truth destroys their entire worldview. James paused. I'm proud of you. Maya looked up, surprised by the emotion in his voice. For what? For not letting them break you. For building something real while they were building social media profiles. For becoming exactly who you were meant to be instead of who they told you to be. The words hit harder than expected. Maya swallowed against the sudden tightness in her throat. I haven't done anything special. I just plant gardens. You've changed food access for 47 cities. You've created 300 jobs in underserved communities. Your research on urban agriculture has been cited in 18 peer-reviewed journals. You've been profiled in Forbes, The Atlantic, and the Journal of Sustainable Development. You're what success actually looks like when it's not performing for an algorithm. James walked over and put a hand on her shoulder. And you did it all while they were telling you that you'd failed. Maya wanted to deflect, to minimize, to make it smaller so it wouldn't feel so overwhelming. But she also wanted to sit with it for a moment, the truth of what she'd built. The reality of who she'd become when she stopped trying to be who they wanted. The dinner is going to be horrible, she said finally. Probably. Judith is going to make comments about my clothes and my car and my life choices. Definitely. Todd will ask invasive questions about my finances and assume I'm struggling. Without a doubt. Kimberly will try to get me to participate in her social media content about finding joy in simplicity or some equally condescending nonsense. While wearing a dress that costs more than your monthly rent, and Derek will sit there looking uncomfortable because he knows the truth but hasn't told anyone because it makes him look bad that his ex-wife is more successful than him. And Vanessa will make passive-aggressive comments about women who let themselves go after divorce. Maya laughed despite herself. You've really thought this through. I've been watching you prepare for this dinner for 5 years. Every time they make a comment, every time they diminish you, every time they treat you like you're less than, you've been building your case. And on Friday, you're going to present that case without saying a word. I'm going to celebrate Lily. You're going to celebrate Lily while they realize they've been blind. Those are not mutually exclusive goals. Maya's device buzzed again. This time it was a reminder about her meeting with Marcus Delgado, the chef who'd been sourcing ingredients from her gardens for 2 years. He wanted to discuss expanding their partnership, possibly featuring her work in his upcoming cookbook. She'd been putting off scheduling because meetings felt like distractions from the real work, but James had insisted. He visits your gardens personally twice a week, James had said. That's not about purple basil. That's about you. The thought made her uncomfortable. She'd been alone for 5 years, and it felt safer that way. No one to disappoint. No one to walk out during important moments. No one to look at her and decide she wasn't enough, but Marcus looked at her like she was fascinating. Like her dirt-stained hands and simple clothes and complete lack of social media presence made her more interesting. Not less. Like authenticity was attractive instead of embarrassing. You're thinking about the chef, James said, reading her expression with annoying accuracy. I'm thinking about the sensor calibration. You're thinking about the chef who's been trying to ask you out for 2 years, but you keep redirecting the conversation to soil pH levels. We have a professional relationship. He visits your rooftop garden at 6 in the morning to watch the sunrise with you. He's passionate about ingredient sourcing. He brings you coffee made specifically how you like it, which he had to ask Lily about because you never told him. Maya felt heat rise to her cheeks. That doesn't mean. He asked you to dinner last week and you said yes. I said I'd consider it, which is Maya chin for yes, but I'm scared. I'm not scared. I'm cautious. There's a difference. You're scared that someone might see you for who you actually are and choose to stay. James's voice was gentle again. Which is reasonable given your ex-husband chose to leave. But Marcus isn't Derek. And you're not who you were 5 years ago. Maya wanted to argue, but her device buzzed again. Another message from Lily. Also, Marcus Delgado might stop by. He mentioned wanting to talk to you about the city council thing. Is that weird? Should I tell him not to come? James saw Maya's expression and started laughing. Oh, this is perfect. He's going to show up at the dinner. He's not going to show up at the dinner. He's absolutely going to show up at the dinner. And Derek's family is going to watch a successful, attractive man treat you like you're the most important person in the room. While they're busy explaining why you're a failure, this is a disaster, this is poetry. Maya's device buzzed continuously now, Lily sending a stream of messages about seating arrangements, dress codes, arrival times. Each message contained subtle warnings. Grandmother wants everyone there by 6 sharp. Dad said to use the valet service, not street parking. Vanessa is bringing her influencer friends who will definitely be filming everything. The Elevation Club. Where every word was recorded, every interaction measured, every person's worth calculated and displayed for public consumption. Where Maya would be automatically categorized as peripheral based on her clothes, her car, her lack of augmented enhancements and social media presence, where, in 3 days, she would sit at the outer ring and let them believe exactly what they wanted to believe about her life. I need to finish these calibrations, Maya said, returning to her work with renewed focus. James watched her for a moment, then nodded. Want me to come? Moral support, to Lily's graduation dinner? I can pretend to be your intimidating business partner who makes Derek's family nervous. You are my intimidating business partner who makes Derek's family nervous, then I should definitely come. Maya considered it. Having James there would make the evening bearable. But it would also make it easier, and some part of her, the part that had been growing stronger over 5 years, wanted to face this alone. Wanted to walk in without armor and prove that she didn't need protection from people whose opinions had stopped mattering the moment she'd realized her worth wasn't determined by their approval. Thank you, she said. But this is something I need to do myself, alright. But I'm taking you shopping first. I don't need, you're going to walk into that place looking exactly like who you are. Which means we're finding something that says I'm successful and authentic and completely unbothered by your judgment instead of I apologize for existing. My clothes don't apologize for anything. Your clothes are amazing for working in gardens. But for psychological warfare with your ex-husband's family, we need strategic authenticity. Which is different from defensive authenticity, Maya wanted to argue, but James was right. She'd spent 5 years dressing for gardens because gardens were safe. Gardens didn't judge. Gardens didn't measure her worth in augmented overlays and social media followers. But Friday wasn't about gardens. Friday was about showing up as herself, completely. Unapologetically herself, and letting them see what they'd been too blind to notice. Fine, she said. But nothing expensive. Nothing that looks like I'm trying, agreed. We're going for successful woman who spends her money on things that matter, not desperate ex-wife trying to compete. I'm not competing with anyone, you're absolutely competing. You're just competing in a completely different game than they realize. Maya's device buzzed one final time. A message from Derek, sent directly instead of through Lily, looking forward to Friday. Thank you for coming. I know my family can be difficult. She stared at the message for a long moment. Derek knew. He'd known for months that she was successful. That she'd built something real, that his assumption of her failure had been catastrophically wrong. And he'd said nothing. Hadn't warned his family. Hadn't corrected their assumptions. Hadn't defended her when they made their small, cutting comments about her sad little gardens and her pathetic little life. He'd let them believe the lie because the truth made him look bad. That realization settled in her chest like a stone, heavy and solid and strangely clarifying. She'd spent years thinking she needed to prove something to them. But the truth was simpler. They'd already decided who she was, and no amount of evidence would change their minds until reality forced them to see. Friday would force them to see. "I'm going to that dinner," Maya said, her voice steady. "I'm going to celebrate Lily. And I'm going to let them discover that they've been wrong about everything." James grinned. "Now you're talking. When do we go shopping?" "Tomorrow. After I finish these calibrations and finalize the council presentation, and after you respond to Marcus about dinner." Maya felt herself smile despite her best efforts. "And after I respond to Marcus about dinner, that's my girl. Revenge without violence and romance without drama. You're living the dream, I'm just living authentically, which, in a world designed around performance and pretense, is the most radical thing you can do." Maya returned to her work, her hands moving through familiar motions, testing, adjusting, calibrating. Around her, the garden thrived in ways that were invisible to anyone who didn't know how to look. Roots growing deep beneath concrete, systems developing resilience, life finding ways to flourish in spaces that seemed inhospitable. Just like her, in 3 days, she would walk into the Elevation Club with her head high and her secret intact. She would sit at the outer ring and let them make their assumptions. She would smile through their condescension and their pity and their barely veiled contempt, and then, when the moment was right, she would let them see the truth, not because she needed their approval. Not because she wanted revenge. But because Lily deserved to see her mother claim her full worth in front of the people who'd spent 5 years trying to diminish it. Because sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is simply refusing to shrink. Because authenticity, in a world built on performance, was the ultimate rebellion. Maya Chen had spent 5 years building that rebellion, one garden at a time. And on Friday, at her daughter's graduation dinner, surrounded by people who thought they knew her story, she would show them they'd been reading it wrong from the beginning. The sensor beeped, calibration complete. Maya stood, brushed the dirt from her knees, and looked out across the garden she'd built with her own hands. In 3 days, Derek's family would understand what that actually meant. She couldn't wait.